hoping for a new film for Christmas.
Nibbling on sponge cake, watching the sun bake.
This is like very funny.
What does being an American mean to you?
Being an American means having the freedom to have cut.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can cut that part out.
Go ahead.
No, I don't want to do it.
Being American means that, you know, we can. Shoot, I don't know. That's a really tough question.
Yeah.
Shoot.
You can think. I'm just gonna crop out the part where you're thinking.
Okay.
I don't want to be American anymore.
Being American.
Yes.
To have the opportunity, freedom to do what you want to do, choice, and be able to optimize everything you want to do with your life.
Being an American means to me having access to many opportunities, being able to pursue anything I would want to do in an affordable and equitable way, and being able to have your dreams be within reach and in the most part be attainable and be reasonable. I think that's a really important part of America and the freedom that it offers, or it intends to offer, or the Constitution intended to offer for its citizens. Also being engaged citizen, because you don't really get very far in this country without being engaged, and also making sure that everybody's provided the same opportunities.
Freedom, being able to basically do whatever you want to do, being able to walk along these streets and not worry about, you know, gunfire or anything else like that. I don't know. You just like don't think about it all the time, but I don't know.
Being an American means to me I have freedom, I have good shelter, food available, opportunities for jobs.
Ability to move around from the country, state to state, security, and yeah.
About 80% of the people we interviewed today either refused to talk on video or they just didn't want to speak about America. So that was definitely challenging just to find people that would talk to us. But the last person we actually talked to decided that he had some things to say, and he went on to really engage us in a fascinating discussion and kind of summed up, I guess, what we were trying to find in this project.
I don't know, it's like, I feel like some people feel it's more of a, it's, you know, like I said before, it's like the right versus the privilege, and how far does that actually extend to? Because, you know, like I was mentioning before with the Ferguson case, you got all the black community that's raising hell about the white officer shooting the black teenager. But then you don't hear them talking about the kid in Chicago that got shot by the white officer, or shot by the black officer who happened to be a white kid. You don't hear anyone talking about that. So, you know, I feel like as we've kind of lost our way a little bit, that we take for granted what we have as a country, as an American citizen. That, you know, there's certain things that we're entitled to, yes, you know, the right to bear arms, you know, the Constitution, but that only goes so far. You know, as an American citizen, I feel like we're starting to abuse a little bit of that. You guys should maybe engage in a little bit of a discussion too, just, you know, something like that. That's what gets me going.
Yeah,
and it's a lot easier than be like, what does it mean to be an American? That comes like, huh, you know, people don't think about that every day. But when you start engaging, like, well, what do you think about, you know, the rights and the privileges that you receive as an American citizen? Then it's like, okay, well, you know, it's like, oh, the right to bear arms, and, you know, and then other real world events that can tie into that.
So I just have one last question. So do you believe that these rights and privileges as an American citizen are more accessible to certain groups of people?
What do you mean by certain groups of people? Like,
like racial groups, socioeconomical groups, like people. Do you believe that rich people have better access to these rights and privileges, or people
as well as racial differences?
Yes and no. It depends on location. So like up here, we're a little bit more liberal. Whereas if you were to go down to Texas or one of the more outskirting places where there's still a lot more of the racist ideals, then obviously the white majority would have more of a privilege than the black minority. Even though I'd like to say that it's completely gone, it's still not, as you can see with the Ferguson case. But the rich, obviously, the laws you can pay if to pay off the right people. The laws can be swept under the rug pretty much, like with O.J. Simpson. That's a classic example of that. You have the money, laws don't mean much. And so we have the right to speak up against that, but whether the law and the government actually backs up our rights, that's a different story.
And you mentioned that racism is more apparent in more southern states like Texas, but do you believe that racism still exists in places like Seattle?
I think it does, just not as dominant as in other states. Because like I said, we're a little bit more liberal-minded.
All right, so that final guy that you saw there really engaged us in a fascinating discussion, as I said before. He's a former University of Washington student, and in reflection on this project, I'd say that he kind of opened us up to see what really this project should be about, and that's not just asking maybe a single question about what does America mean to you, but maybe engaging in a more thorough discussion that opens people up, because people aren't gonna jump at the opportunity to answer an incredibly hard question to a stranger, but maybe discussing with them, if they have time, will lead to something like an experience like we had with that guy.
Going into this project, I anticipated that a lot of people would be very willing to discuss this question, but in reality, a majority of them really didn't want to answer anything that we asked them, and they're especially against being filmed. And so that's something I really didn't anticipate when I was going into this project, but I think heading out of it, I realized that America is very introverted, and we're very focused on our own lives, and that we really don't spend much time reflecting on the privileges or the rights that we have, and that the Constitution and what being an American citizen really means is just a thing of the past, and that I think we've lost touch with the foundation of our nation.
Wasting away again in Margaritaville, searching for